Good afternoon, everyone, and I suppose good afternoon, fellow journalists, because when it comes to social media, we're all potentially journalists, and we can make our own news, we can spin our own news, we can do practically anything with our news and get away with it with a certain degree of anonymity. And this is what we here have tried to address, that whole question of the responsibility, the maturity with which we report news, we inform our fellow citizens on social media. Now, I don't think I need to go into the statistics, but as we all know, social media is the most dynamic and most prolific of the sources of news that we have in this country today. If we look at the real sources in terms of who actually produces the news, a recent study, for example, that was done by a senior researcher, Sanjana Hattotu, at the Center for Policy Alternatives for his PhD degree, he found that Gossip Sri Lanka was probably responsible for the vast majority of news that was out there. The information was coming from a site called Gossip Sri Lanka. And therefore, the question of the responsibility, the verification, the purpose, the objectives of that site are indeed of particular relevance to us. But will we ever know as to why they are putting up what they are putting up, what they have distorted, what they exactly have turned around in favor of a particular point of view? No. So in the announcement, in the launch of this social media declaration, what we are actually doing here is appealing to the better instincts of our fellow citizens to try to retain at least a semblance, if not a body, of mature, responsible media in this country. We know that there are all sorts of arguments being put forward in terms of there is no truth. There are various perspectives, or perhaps that is putting it mildly, various perspectives of what has happened. There is no real truth. But I, as a secretary of the task force, for example, on reconciliation mechanisms, we went all over the country, and the one simple message we heard from all the people was, we want to know the truth. We want the truth out there. We want it acknowledged. We want the state to acknowledge what happened to us. We want ourselves to acknowledge what we allowed to happen to us. So we have two conflicting, if you like, demands or requirements as far as the public realm is concerned. Those who are willing to spin the truth for a political advantage, and those who want to know the truth because they believe that is the starting point to build meaningful national unity which is necessary for prosperity. Now, we all know that with regard to the declaration, at the end of the day, it can only be fulfilled by individual conscience and a sense of responsibility. There can't be any punitive sanctions. There should not be any punitive sanctions in terms of the interference of something like a punitive sanction with things like freedom of speech, freedom of expression. But what we are being told, therefore, is that these freedoms come at a tremendous price. That those of us who are willing to write, to upload on social media what is here contained in this declaration, are going to face a very daunting challenge of getting that message through. Because there's going to be a whole lot of information from websites, etc., which are going to contradict that, which are going to put a question mark after every single sentence, as it were. This organization, the Center for Policy Alternatives, we were, I think, the one non-media organization that was involved in the Colombo Declaration on Social Responsibility back in the late 1990s. And I must say that we failed in ensuring that that declaration was actually observed and upheld in practice amongst print media. And we had draconian laws on the statute book, which we eventually got away with, and we have peer review organizations as well to monitor. But is the quality of our media any better? Indeed, is the quality of media internationally any better than what it was? Social media is tremendously empowering, but I think we have to be very clear in our minds that empowering does not necessarily mean good, in the sense of that social media will always be used for a positive and constructive purpose. It is a technology that can be used to build as well as to destroy, to distort as well as to design. And we must be very much aware of this, because that is what is going to build the corpus of information in a democracy, for example, where the basic choice, the basic mechanism of choice and change are elections, and those elections, the decisions made in those elections, have to be fed by the information received out there. And social media is at the head. It is taking the lead as far as that is concerned. So, with regard to this declaration, with regard to the prohibitions, the conscientious and diligent prohibitions against sexual abuse, sexual harassment, amongst other things, all of that on social media, we therefore have to make a firm decision that we are going to ensure that information is provided that falls within the framework of what I would call basic human dignity. That we don't allow for news that goes out distorted, goes out to incite hatred, to build division, to do all of those things that we have had an unhealthy dose of in the past and brought us to the situation that we have come to. So, a great big thank you to all the organizations who have made this day possible and made this declaration possible. But the real work starts now, in terms of ensuring that the declaration is fulfilled in practice, and it's not just another piece of paper which we produce with some tamasha here today at the BMICH without any real purpose at all. This is election year, 2019. Maybe 3 elections, maybe 2 elections, maybe only 1 election, which then would mean that next year is also election year. So our sense of awareness, our sense of diligence, our sense of dedication and accomplishment with regard to the social media declaration is going to be put to the test. And please let us make sure that whilst we may not succeed in full, that we do not fail in full. Thank you.